My name's Emberly Swan, and today I'm doing a presentation about the women who fought in the Civil War. How many women posed as men in this war? So, since they were disguised and passed as men, we don't have an exact number, but it's estimated to be somewhere between 400 and 750 women. Here are some women that fought in the Civil War. We have Frances Clayton, whose original name was Frances Clayton, and she served with the 4th Missouri Artillery. And then we have Albert Cashier, which their original name was Jenny Hodgers of the 95th Illinois Infantry. She fought in more than 40 engagements throughout the duration of the Civil War. And then she actually continued to live as a man after the war. She received a military pension and then ended up living in a soldier's home until they discovered that she was a man. Why and how did these women fight in the Civil War? They did this because they wanted to share in the trials of their loved ones. They were promised reliable wages, the ability to leave home, and then some just wanted adventure. And then how did the women do this? It's actually a lot easier than you'd think. Most soldiers were unexperienced, so they came into war as citizen soldiers. This means they had no prior experience, so they learned everything, and the women learned at the same pace as the men. When it came to looking like it was also pretty easy. They just cut their hair, changed their names. The physical exams weren't very rigorous. They just looked for visible handicaps. So clothing was heavy and ill-fitting, so you couldn't really see their body shape. And then when it came to facial hair, the youngest you could be to enter the Civil War was 18, but they really didn't enforce these age cap. So it was very common for men in the war and boys to not have facial hair. Women's duties in the war. So they obviously didn't know that these women were women, so they did the same duties as the men. They were scouts, spies, prison guards, cooks, nurses, all of that. And then why couldn't the women fight in this war? During this time period, women weren't perceived as equals to men, and the Union and Confederate armies forbid the enlistment of women. And then finally, how were these women discovered? In most cases, they're discovered by their injuries. An example is Mary Galloway, who was discovered when she got a chest wound. And then another woman, Mary Owens, was discovered when she got an arm wound. And then when these women were discovered, it didn't cause a huge uproar. It was just they were sent home, or in rare cases, they were briefly imprisoned or institutionalized. Thank you for listening to my presentation. For the second half of my presentation, I wrote a narrative as if I was a woman fighting in the Civil War to show my understanding. It was an early spring morning down in Georgia when I came down into the kitchen to hear Mama talking about this new thing called conscription laws. The Civil War has been going on for a bit and things have definitely not been easy around here, but at least I have my family. This time when I heard them going on about all the chaos in the country, there wasn't just panic in Mom's voice, but sadness. Out of curiosity, I go sit at the table with them, and my mom goes on about this new law and how it is drafting men aged 18 to 35 to fight in the war. At first, I questioned why she seemed so distraught, considering Dad is much older. With me being 17 and their last child, he is well over 35. But then I remembered William. Are they going to send my brother to war? Within the next few days, a letter came in the mail, drafting William into war. This enraged me. I wasn't just going to sit at home and watch my older brother go fight for this country while I'm stuck working in the factories. I mean, of course I'd be helping, but I want something more hands-on like William was doing. So I took it into my own hands. I went up to my room and cut my long, thick hair until there's only an inch remaining. I binded up my chest with medical tape and made myself a new name. In the middle of the night, I left with no explanation, just a note saying goodbye, knowing my parents would not approve of this. And I was off. Do I think my plan is going to work? I honestly don't know. It wouldn't be hard to realize I was a woman with my soft features and lack of facial hair, but it's worth a shot. I wasn't going to sit back at home and watch this from the sides. I wanted to be involved. When I reached the address printed on the flyer I found, the sun had just risen and so had the butterflies in my stomach. After a little waiting and a lot of talking, they tell me I need a physical exam. This is when I get really nervous. Will they see what's really under my baggy clothing and send me home? But all this man did was look me up and down, made sure all my limbs worked, and sent me off. I was jaw-dropped, but grateful it was that simple. The next man asked me some basic information like my name, and then gave me a uniform and a musket. I was officially a Confederate soldier, and it was a lot easier than expected. Fast forward a few weeks, and I've officially fought in 2 engagements. As adventurous as this was, it was very harsh. It was unsanitary, so tiring, and at times boring. If we weren't marching or at danger, there were long periods of nothing to do and so much drilling. And I have yet to cross paths with William. One morning we were told we had another battle, and this one was the most intense I've ever experienced. I was in the pouring rain fighting for what felt like hours. All I wanted was to go lay on my cot, which says a lot considering how uncomfortable it was. But then I felt something weird, a sharp pain through my chest. As my eyes dropped, I saw blood oozing down my chest and onto my stomach. After someone realized, I was rushed to the nurse on the battlefront, and she started unbuttoning my top. I started to panic, knowing my secret was going to be revealed, but I didn't have an option at this point. The last thing I saw before fainting was the nurse's face drop. By the time I was awake and all fixed up, my stuff was packed, and I was in a room full of what looked like people with high authority. They told me I had to reveal my true identity, and when I told them everything, they agreed to contact my parents and let me off easy and not imprison me due to my young age. Through my mother's tears, yelling, and hugs, I couldn't tell how she felt. She was furious I left without an explanation where I went, but they were somewhat pleased with my perseverance to go fight for our country.